Hi, hello, a very good afternoon to everyone. I'm Dr. Harika Kishore. On behalf of Vista's Learning, I'm here as your biology educator. Learning, it's an online education platform which works with an ideology of providing quality education for all. Visit our website www.v-learning.in where you're going to get an access for all the live classes, recorded sessions, study materials, concept videos, and also you're going to get this lecture notes in the form of PDFs. Get your acquaintance with all the channels available and make sure to subscribe to the channel Vista's Learning Class 11 and 12. If you find this session useful and interesting, make sure to click on the like and share this session with your friends. And also, click on the bell icon so that you are going to get all the upcoming video notifications. Saying this, let's start today's session. So, we are discussing about the chapter environmental issues that comes under the unit ecology, right? So in previous session, we have discussed about air pollution and its control. Similarly, in this session, we are going to discuss about water pollution and its control. Let's start. As we already know that as the human population is increasing and it is ever increasing, with such increase in human size, definitely there is going to be a demand, increasing demand for all the commodities like food, shelter, water, and even for roads, automobiles, and also for the lands, available lands. So this is what it is going to add a great pressure. It is going to add a great pressure and it is going to damage to our natural precious resources, such that it is going to add up to the pollutions that were created in our natural resources, which finally leads to air pollution, water pollution. So here, as we already know, human beings have been abusing, that means abusing, misuse, right? Human beings have been misusing the water bodies around the world for discharging, decomposing. We are discharging the solid waste, water waste, like that municipal water waste, what we call it as a sewage. The direct discharge of the sewage is going to add up to the water pollution, and thereby it is going to reduce the quality of the water that are present in the water bodies. Therefore, we already know, while we are discussing about the usage of the microorganisms, we have been discussed about the treatment of sewage. Sewage water is treated before they have been discharged into the water bodies, thereby reducing the pollution. So here, man is abusing the water bodies which are present around the world by decomposing into them. That means waste, solid waste or liquid waste, of all kind of waste, right? Now here, he is decomposing, disperses all the waste into the water bodies, making these water bodies very, very polluted. Now, we tend to believe that we have a belief like water can wash away anything, but we have to keep in mind, knowledge, aware that we have to take the consideration about the fact. What is that fact? That all the water bodies are our lifelines. Our means humans, not only humans, these water bodies are lifelines for all the other living organisms too. So therefore, it is very, very important to consider the fact that these water bodies, whatever the water bodies that has been polluted by the mankind, they are going to act as, these water bodies are mainly the lifelines for our as well as for all the other living organisms, which includes like plant systems and animal system. Therefore, disposing the sewage after treatment is very, very essential. Coming to the treatment of the sewage, while we are discussing about the usages of the microorganisms itself, we mentioned about this sewage treatment. And this sewage treatment is happening by the usage of, we already know that, aerobic microorganisms. And the sewage treatment happens in a two stages, two treatments, like what we call it as a primary treatment, and the second one is called as secondary treatment. In the secondary treatment, we have been using these microorganisms, and particularly aerobic microorganisms. Therefore, the secondary treatment was also called as, otherwise known as, biological treatment. So following this, first, primary treatment, which includes two major steps. What are they? One is filtration, another one is sedimentation. So using this filtration and sedimentation, whatever the solid particles which are present in the sewage are removed out. Then this primary effluent are then subjected to the secondary treatment. Secondary treatment, as we are using microorganisms, this secondary treatment is otherwise called as biological treatment. Here in the biological treatment, in the presence of oxygen, microorganisms are going to consume whatever the organic matter which is present in the primary effluent, thereby making this sewage less polluted. Now, after treating, then only this subjected, treatment subjected sewage is going to discharge into the water bodies. The main motto here is to pollute less. Now, due to such activities, that means deposition of all the waste substances, that is sewage, directly into the water bodies, due to such activities of humankind, water bodies like the ponds, okay, due to such activities, what do you mean by such activities? That is disposal of waste water into water bodies of humankind's, the water bodies, which includes ponds, lakes, streams, rivers, estuaries, and even oceans, are becoming polluted. In various parts of the world, this is what's happening. Now, realizing the importance and maintenance of the cleanliness of water bodies, the government of India has passed an act, and that act is called as Water Prevention and Control of Pollution Act in the year 1974. Same way, even air, right? Prevention and control of pollution act was made in the year 1981, and it has been modified in the year 1987 with a small amendment, that is, they have considered the noise as one of the effective air pollutant. This is what we discussed in a previous session. Here also, to maintain the cleanliness of all the water bodies, the government of India has passed an act, and that act is Water Prevention and Control of Pollution Act in the year 1974. To safeguard, that means to protect our natural, that is water resources. Now, so here, moving on to domestic sewage and industrial effluent. What do you mean by effluent? Effluent is a waste, discharging waste that is coming from the industries. That is what, while we are discussing about the sewage treatment, we have mentioned about the primary effluent and the secondary effluent. Like primary effluent is waste water which remains after the primary treatment, followed by, which is subjected to the secondary treatment. So here, the industrial waste is being disposed into the water bodies, and along with that, even the domestic sewage. Domestic sewage is majorly the water waste which is coming from the houses, and even we can say hospitals, small scale industries. These are all, we can consider it as a domestic sewage, whereas the sewage which is, that is a wastewater which is coming from the industries where the heavy metal processing has been taking place, there we have to consider the presence of heavy metals which are going to present in the sewage. So the treatment is must, and it has to be intensively done. Now, So as we work with water in our homes, in the cities and towns, we wash everything into the drains. Now, after the usage, whatever the used water, a waste water, that where it is going, here is a question. Have you ever wondered where the sewage waste water that comes out of our houses, that comes out of the houses which are present in our cities, towns, where they are going? And another thing, in the sewage treatment is they are treated. First, they has to be treated. The sewage, whatever it is coming out of the houses or the industries, first it has to be treated. Then we call it as a treated sewage. Is the sewage treated before being transported into the nearest water bodies, that is rivers, and mixed with it? Definitely, before being added into the water bodies, the sewage has to undergo subjected to treatment. Then only we can expect it to be less polluted. Now, so to make you understand what are the percentage of the impurities that are making the water unfit for the human consumption. So here, a merely very insignificant amount, a mere 0.1%. 0.1% is merely very insignificant, right? But still, merely 0.1% impurities make domestic sewage unfit for human use. Now, solids which are present in the sewage are relatively easy to remove. But what about the dissolved components? It is difficult to remove the dissolved components or dissolved matter which is present inside the sewage. So here, solids are relatively easy to remove. What is most difficult to remove are dissolved salts in the form of nitrates, phosphates, and other nutrients, and toxic metal ions and organic compounds which are present. Always the solids like pebbles, small stones, grit, these can be easily separated out by filtration and sedimentation methods. Whereas removing of the dissolved salt is little difficult. It is difficult when compared to the removal of the solids that are present in the sewage. Let's understand what are the impurities that are present at 0.1 percentage such that this water is unfit for the human usage. Now, these impurities, 0.1%, that includes definitely suspended solids in the form of sand, silt, that means very fine sand, clay, and also colloidal materials like human excreta, fecal matter, microorganisms like bacteria, cloth fibers, paper fibers. These are all colloidal materials which are present in the sewage. And even dissolved materials like just now we mentioned nitrates, nutrients like nitrate, ammonia, phosphate, sodium, calcium. These are all constitute 0.1 percentage of impurities that are present in the sewage, which makes this domestic sewage unfit for the human usage. Now, so here, as we already mentioned about the sewage treatment, right? Domestic sewage, that means the wastewater which is coming from the houses, hospitals, we can consider it is just the difference is if it is coming from the industries, we call it as an industrial effluent, which has to be treated very efficiently, very effectively, because it is going to supposed to contain high like heavy metals, high concentration of heavy metals. Now, this domestic sewage primarily consists of, as this domestic sewage is coming out of the homes where we are washing the clothes or vegetables or whatever the debris that are coming from the food, all these are biodegradable. We can consider them as a biodegradable organic matter. While we are discussing about the sewage treatment, we have mentioned about BOD, biochemical oxygen demand. And this biochemical oxygen demand will act as a measure indicator by which we can understand how polluted the sewage is. Now here, contains biodegradable organic matter which readily decomposes by the action of microorganisms. That is what the second treatment, that is called a secondary treatment, otherwise called as biological treatment, makes the usage of aerobic microorganisms. Aerobic, like we mentioned as flocks, like association of the bacteria with the fungal filaments, which makes a mesh-like structure, and that we call it as a flocks. Flocks are nothing but it's an anaerobic bacteria which degrades a degradable organic matter. So if you consider this as a sewage wastewater which is coming from domestic source, in the sewage we find the presence of organic matter as they are easily degradable. They can be degraded, they can be decomposed easily by using living organisms, and that are called as microorganisms. That is why we call it as a biodegradable organic matter. So these are all biodegradable organic matter, and this biodegradable organic matter can easily be digestible, can be easily consumed by the microorganisms. For but for the bacteria to consume this biodegradable organic matter, it requires the presence of oxygen. And that oxygen, it is taking from the dissolved form. That is what we can say, that if the oxygen, that is biochemical oxygen demand, is reduced, it indicates that the microorganisms has been already consumed whatever biodegradable organic matter which is present in the sewage. That means if the BOD reduces, we can understand that the sewage has been treated, because the organic matter whatever that is present in the sewage, it has been already consumed by the bacteria, that is aerobic bacteria. So that is what, as a main degradation depends upon the availability of the microbes, we have to thank to bacteria and other microorganisms, as these microorganisms are being involved in the decomposition of the organic matter which is present in the sewage. Let's move forward. This bacteria are microbes consuming organic matter, see, organic matter is present in sewage. Using this organic matter, bacteria or the microbes starts growing, starts multiplying, can multiply using these organic substances as a substrate. Substrate is nothing but starting substances, starting material, substrate, and hence utilizes some of the component of sewage, making the sewage less polluted, because organic matter is present in the sewage, and whatever the organic matter which is present in the sewage has been already consumed by the microbes. As the microbes are growing, we can understand that the amount of the biodegradable organic matter which is present in the sewage is being reduced. Therefore, it also leads to the reduction in the BOD, that is biochemical oxygen demand. Biochemical oxygen demand. Let's understand it further. It is possible to estimate the amount of the biodegradable organic matter in sewage by water by measuring biochemical oxygen demand. Simple. Assume this is a sewage wastewater to be treated, right? So, consider these are all biodegradable organic matter. Biodegradable organic matter. Microbes, bacteria, starts to consume this biodegradable organic matter, and microbes starts growing, starts multiplying in its number. And as the microbes started to grow, started to divide and increases and multiplies in its number, it starts consuming more and more of biodegradable organic matter. For this utilization, for the bacteria, for the microbe to utilize this biodegradable organic matter, it requires the presence of oxygen. That is what we consider this microbes as a aerobic microbe which utilizes the oxygen. And this, as the oxygen is being utilized, it finally leads to the decrease in dissolved oxygen content. That means decrease in the biochemical oxygen demand. So this biochemical oxygen demand, BOD, is acting as a measure to indicate the amount of biodegradable organic matter which is present in the sewage water. So it is being acted as an indicator. If the BOD is more, we can understand still the sewage is polluted. Still the sewage want to be treated. If the BOD is less, we can understand that the sewage is treated now. So this is a representation here to make you understand how there is a changes that is happening in characteristics of river. So this is a image directly taken from your NCERT textbook. Let's understand what it says. Effect of sewage discharge on some important characteristics of river. Consider this is a river. Okay. Now, the sewage has been discharged. Sewage has been discharged into the water body, and this water body is river. Okay. As we already know, sewage consists of biodegradable organic matter. Biodegradable organic matter. And this biodegradable organic matter is consumed by the microbes. While it is consuming this organic matter, bacteria utilizes oxygen. Then the question here is, microbes, where do we get this oxygen? Where these microbes are getting the oxygen for the decomposition to be done for the consume of this organic matter? It is taking the oxygen by using the dissolved oxygen which is present in the river. Dissolved oxygen. Right? Let's understand. So here is an arrow mark where this is the point at which sewage discharge happened. Sewage discharge happened. Therefore, here what happened, as the bacteria started to utilize the oxygen which is present in the dissolved form, the dissolved oxygen decreases. So thereby, here first we can say, as the dissolved oxygen is being used up and it is taking, then we can say, as we already said, that BOD is a measure to indicate how polluted the water is. Now, this is the point at which the sewage deposition takes place. All of a sudden, we can say that as it is containing the organic matter, there is a, see, fall in the dissolved oxygen, because this dissolved oxygen, level of the dissolved oxygen has been used up by the microorganisms, and as the sewage is added upon, there is a raise in the level of BOD. At this point, BOD is raised and dissolved oxygen is decreased, because whatever the microbe which is present in the river started consuming the dissolved oxygen, and using up this dissolved oxygen, it started to work on the organic matter which is present. Therefore, as the pollution is more, at this point we can see the oxygen demand is that is biochemical oxygen demand is very more. And as the organic matter has been used up, then there is a decrease in the BOD, biochemical oxygen demand. And as there is a decrease in the biochemical oxygen demand, obviously the dissolved oxygen will raise in the river, because the microorganisms are not using the dissolved form of oxygen. Therefore, it is available for the other aquatic creatures. So, at this point, when the sewage discharge happens, it consists of more organic matter. More organic matter means microorganisms utilizes more oxygen. Therefore, the oxygen levels are dropped initially, and it has to work on more organic matter. More organic matter means at this point we can find more biochemical oxygen demand. So the degradation by the microorganisms happens such a way that it going to decrease the biological oxygen demand, and as the biological oxygen demand is reduced up, which results in increased dissolved oxygen. So as the dissolved oxygen levels are dropping, we can say here the fishes were killed and disappearance of the fresh water organisms, of fresh, we can say clean water organisms happens, and the reappearance of the clean water organisms happens when there is a raise in the dissolved oxygen. So in this situation, there is a raise in the oxygen, the demand, that is biochemical oxygen demand, and there is a drop in the dissolved oxygen. As there is a drop in the dissolved oxygen of the river, the other aquatic organisms, that means fishes, will get killed, and even disappearance of the clean water organisms takes place. As the sewage water has been treated by the microorganisms, it leads to the decrease in the biochemical demand, whereas it which ultimately leads to the increase in the dissolved oxygen levels. Increased in dissolved oxygen levels, which is an opposite to the first situation. In the second situation, there is a raise in the dissolved oxygen. As the dissolved oxygen is available, then there is a reappearance of clean water organisms. So this is what it indicates. The simple thing, if the sewage is dropped, there is a more organic matter. More organic matter means more utilization of the oxygen by the microbes. More utilization of the oxygen means, that means more biochemical oxygen demand. Here, when the organic matter decreases towards the end, we can say there is a decrease in the organic matter, and we can say there is a drop in the biochemical oxygen demand. As there is a drop in the biochemical oxygen demand, which is a indicator to say that the sewage has been treated, which okay, so here the microorganism starts to degrade, which involves in the biodegradation of organic matter that is present in the sewage that has been discharged into the water bodies, right? Microorganisms involved in biodegradation of organic matter in the receiving water bodies consumes a lot of oxygen, because for consuming the organic matter, it requires a lot of oxygen. As a result, there is a sharp decline in the dissolved oxygen that is present in the water streams, right? There is a sharp decline. So this is how there is a sharp decline, and here after that it raises slowly. First starting it declines, completely declines. Here is the point to understand. Initially, when the sewage is discharged into the natural water bodies, initially it will be having dissolved oxygen levels, right? But when the sewage discharge happens, the sewage contains organic matter, and the bacteria starts to decompose, degrade this biodegradable organic matter which is present in the sewage. For this process, it requires lot and lot of oxygen. Therefore, the dissolved oxygen decreases very sharply soon after the discharge of the sewage, right? In the streams, right? So from the point of discharge happen, from the point of sewage discharge. Now, after that, slowly it raises, which when it happens, when there is a decrease in the biochemical oxygen demands, it leads to increase in the dissolved oxygen level. As the dissolved oxygen level is increasing, which implies the reappearance of the freshwater organisms. So here, this causes, which causes this point. We are in continuation with this point where the water bodies into this sewage has been discharged. As the sewage is containing organic matter, this organic matter is used up, consumed by the bacteria. Bacteria, to consume the organic matter, it requires oxygen. It takes the oxygen. Where it is taking? It is taking from the dissolved oxygen that is present in the water bodies. Now, the water bodies is lacking the dissolved oxygen levels. That is what this causes. This means here decrease in dissolved oxygen which is present in the water bodies. As there is a decrease in the dissolved oxygen levels, it leads to death of fishes, other aquatic organisms. That means mortality of fishes and other aquatic creatures. Not only fishes, other aquatic creatures are also um, disappearing at this point of time. That is what they mention, like disappearance of freshwater organisms, and the fishes will get killed. Now, the percentage of large amount of nutrients in water, that is what it happens in the case of discharge of the sewages into the water bodies. Let's understand another concept that is called as algal blooms. In algal blooms, what happens? Just now we say that the sewage, which consisting of a large amount of organic matters. So here, this is a greater source of all the nutrients, right? So the percentage, that is the presence of large amount of nutrients in water, also causes excessive growth of planktonic algae. What do you mean by free floating algae? Free floating algae, and that growth, excessive growth of planktonic algae, we call it as a algal blooms. See here, the sewage has been discharged into the natural water bodies. What happened? As a sewage is a source of greater nutrients, minerals, and the organic matter. This will support an excessive, very quick growth of some of the planktonic algae, what we call it as a free floating algae, and that excessive growing algae which covers upon all the surface of the water bodies, that we call it as an algal blooms, because these are going to cover the surface of the water bodies. One thing, it makes the availability of the sunlight very less to the water which is present beneath this algal blooms, right? Second thing, it decreases the quality of water. It leads to the ugly appearance as well as disorder, which leads to the other organisms is going to be affected a lot, right? So here, let's understand, which impairs the distinct color of the water bodies. Even the color of, this is the image that has been directly taken from your NCERT. You can see the blue water has been converted, whether it is lakes, ponds, or even streams, estuaries. We can find the color of the water bodies itself changes into green. So that is what we call it as an algal blooms. Let's understand the effects of this algal blooms. Algal blooms causes deteriorates, that decreases the quality of the water. One, the quality of the water, and it leads to death of fishes, right? Some algal blooms, that is, some bloom forming algae, are extremely poisonous, toxic to human beings as well as to the animals. So here, the sewage is a rich source of organic matter. It consisting of nutrients and minerals. After getting so much of nutrients all of a sudden, the algae which is growing starts growing very quickly. There is a tremendous increase in the growth of some of the planktons, that is free flowing algae. The point here is, as they are free floating, they started to cover it off the surface of the water bodies, making very less availability of the sunlight towards the inner layers of the pond or inner layers of the water bodies. Or it is going to, by this it is going to lead a great effect on the survival of the other aquatic organisms, as well as it is going to decrease the quality of the water, thereby impairing the living system of the aquatic creatures. Now, so here, water hyacinth, we have been explaining, we have been mentioning so many times while discussion. So here we have already, we may have seen the beautiful mauve, that is pale purple. Mauve is a pale purple color flowers, found a very appealing shaped floating plant. It's a hydrophyte in the water bodies. These plants which were introduced, it is an exotic plant. We got it from South America into the India for their lovely flowers. Looking at the lovely pattern of the petals, looking at the lovely pattern of the leaves, this plant, we got it as an ornamental plant. But what happened? Have caused havoc, very dangerous damage, extreme damage. It causes extreme damage by their excessive, invasive, extreme, excessive growth by causing blocks in our waterways. So what happened here? This water hyacinth have a quality of growing at a very fast rate. It will grow within no time and it will cover up all the surface of the water. It's very difficult to find that under this plants we have a water inside it. So what happened? They grow faster than our ability to remove them. It grows within no time and started to fill up all the surface area of the water bodies. So here, these are plants of water hyacinth, we already know, which is otherwise called as Eichhornia craspis. Eichhornia craspis, the world's most problematic aquatic weed. Aquatic means which grows on the water body. Weed means unwanted plant. Unwanted plant. Unwanted plant, also called as terror of Bengal. Terror of Bengal. Because here what happens is, this plant, water hyacinth, has been first introduced into the Bengal, where they have no idea of this invasive growth. This plant in no time started to grow and cover about all the surface of the water body, such that it makes the availability of the sunlight very, very less to the innermost layers, and also whatever the dissolved oxygen that is present in the water bodies has been used up by this plant itself. As they are growing, they are utilizing more and more dissolved oxygen which is present, and making the dissolved oxygen very, very less available for the other aquatic organisms, which leads to the death of fishes. As we already know, Bengal people will find this fishes as their supplement food, as there is a fish scarcity that has been created by the growth of this water hyacinth. They call it, that is, they call this water hyacinth as a terror of Bengal. That means it causes the death of fishes due to decreasing dissolved oxygen that is present in the water bodies. Now, so they grow abundantly in eutrophic, that means enriched with nutrients. Enriched with nutrients water bodies, and leads to an imbalance in the ecosystem dynamics of the water bodies, because it is showing its effect on the aquatic organisms. It is showing its effect in such a way that it is going to make the availability of the dissolved oxygen very, very less, thereby it leads to the death of the aquatic organisms. That means it is causing imbalance to the ecosystem dynamics. Now, sewage from our houses as well as from the hospitals are likely to contain many undesirable, unwanted, pathogenic microorganisms. And its disposal into the water without proper treatment, without sewage treatment, may causes outbreak of a very serious disorders, which includes serious diseases, which includes dysentery, typhoid, jaundice, cholera, etc. Because of this reason, before disposing the sewage into the water bodies, it has to be subjected to the treatment. Sewage treatment is very, very essential to eliminate all this, to avoid all these consequences. Now, unlike domestic sewage, we already mentioned that domestic sewage, comparatively, it is less pollutant than the sewage, than the effluents which are coming from the industries. Industries like water waste, like wastewater from industries like petroleum industries, paper manufacturing industries, metal extraction and processing industries, chemical manufacturing industries. These are all the list of the industries which leads to the release of industrial effluents, industrial wastewater. And this industrial wastewater will contains a very, very toxic, often contains toxic substances, notably heavy metals. When we consider them as a heavy metals, defined as elements with greater density more than 5 gram per centimeter cube, such as mercury, cadmium, copper, lead, and a variety of organic compounds. See, when compared to the domestic sewage, industrial effluent is more polluted because it is going to contain some heavy metals. And heavy metals, where we defined as an element with more density. That means element with density more than 5 grams per centimeter cube. Now, here, a few toxic substances often present in industrial wastewater, that means industrial sewage, can undergo biological magnification. What do you mean by this biological magnification? Here, just now we said that they contain chemicals, and that chemicals are heavy metals which are not metabolized or which are not excreted by the organisms. Therefore, it leads to the accumulation of these chemicals in the organisms. When this organism, say for example, there is a small fish, okay? So it is living in water body. Into this water bodies, the disposal of industrial effluents happen, which consisting of heavy metal like chemical. So now that chemical enters into this fish. What happened, as the fish is unable to metabolize that chemical, or either it is unable to excrete that chemical, the chemical started to accumulate in the body of this fish. As we understand the aquatic food chain, we know that one trophic level to another trophic level. If we consider some big fish started to feed on the small fish, then whatever the chemical that has been deposited inside the body will now enter into the next trophic level organism. It will feed on some other small fishes also. And these small fishes will have their own accumulation of the chemicals. All this accumulated chemical will now enter into the body of the next trophic level of organism, that is big fish. Now let's consider this fish is consumed by next trophic level, say for example bird. fish eating bird. Now, the chemicals which has been deposited in this trophic level is going to be deposited on the next trophic levels, and that too at magnified level, increase. So we can say the deposition of the chemical, as we already know, these are the heavy chemicals which cannot be metabolized, or either it cannot be excreted out of the organism. Therefore, it starts piling up, it starts accumulating. So this accumulated chemical starts to increase, magnify, because it has been consumed by the next level of trophic level. When it is going to reach to the next trophic level, it is going to be magnified. The chemical accumulation is going to be magnified. That is what we consider it as a biomagnification while it is passing through the aquatic food chain, like small zooplanktons, which has been consumed by the small fishes, that has been consumed by the big fishes, that means the big fishes has been consumed by the bird eating, that is fish eating birds. So why the trophic energy is flowing from one trophic level to another trophic level, there is an increase in the concentration of the chemical that has been transferred from one level of the trophic to the another trophic level. Now, here, biomagnification, just now we explained, right? Let's understand it in a theory form. Biomagnification refers to increase. Here it's been piling up, it's been accumulated. So increase in concentration of the toxicant, that is chemical substances, that is heavy metals, we can say, toxicant at successive trophic level. Successive trophic level. Now, it happens because toxic substances accumulated by an organism cannot be metabolized or it cannot be excreted, and therefore then passed on to the next higher trophic level. Now, this phenomenon is well known for examples that were given. One is mercury and other one is DDT. DDT means dichloro diphenyl trichloroethane. So let's understand. So here, as it is passing from one trophic level to the another trophic level, in this manner, look at here, the concentration of the DDT, say for example, whether it is a mercury or DDT, let's understand how the main aim is to how the accumulation of this DDT is happening once it is crossing one trophic level to the another trophic level, once it is reaching to the next trophic level, is increased at successive trophic levels. Say it starts at a very minimal 0.003 parts per billion. Parts per billion. It finally reaches to 25 ppm, parts per million. So here, parts per billion in water, it can ultimately reaches to 25. It started from 0.003 ppb to 25 ppm in fish eating birds through biomagnification. We'll come to understand little detail. Higher concentration of the DDT disturbs what happened. Yeah, by this we came to know that while it is reaching to the level of the like fish eating birds, in the fish eating birds we can see the concentration is raised up to 25 ppm. Yes, what happens then? It is going to interfere. Whatever the increased concentration of DDT that has reached the fish eating bird, it is going to influence with the calcium metabolism. DDT disrupts calcium metabolism in birds, fish catching birds, fish eating birds, which causes the thinning of eggshell. The egg, as we already know, the egg consisting of a calcium, as DDT is going to interfere with the metabolism of the calcium, the birds are going to lay a very thin walled, the shell is very thin, thinning of the eggshell, which leads to premature breaking. Eventually, if the eggs are not survived, if the eggs are leads to the premature breakaging, then Finally, there is a decrease in the bird population. See, the DDT concentration which is present in the sewage is going to show the effect on the population of the birds. That is what we explain the concept of biomagnification. So here is a diagrammatic representation which was given in your NCERT textbook. If you look at here, so this is the water body, right? In the water body, initially this water body, into it the sewage has been discharged. Because of the discharge of the sewage, the DDT concentration of this water initially is 0.003 ppb, parts per billion. Now what happens? Whatever the DDT which is present has been consumed by the zooplanktons. And this zooplanktons, as it feeds on the DDT which is present in the water bodies, when it comes to the level of zooplanktons, inside the zooplanktons, we can find the deposition of this DDT, and it reaches to the level of 0.04 ppm. Unit is changed to ppb to ppm, right? Now it reaches to the next level. When this zooplanktons has been consumed by the small fishes. Small fishes will not eat one zooplanktons. It will eat a group of zooplanktons. Each and every zooplanktons will accumulate a certain amount of DDT. All it in the combination, it is going to reach to the next level, right? This is how the magnification, increase in the content is going to happen in the living system. That is what we consider as a biomagnification, biological magnification. So here, when it reaches to the level of small fishes, that means next level. This is 1, this is 2, this is 3, this is 4. Just for example, make you understand. So as it is reaching from one trophic level to the next trophic level. So at this level, it is raised to 0.5 ppm, right? Now this small fishes has been consumed by the large fish. When it is coming to the large fish level, the concentration further increases to 2 ppm. Now these large fishes are caught, are killed, are consumed by the fish eating birds. When it reaches to the level of birds, the concentration raised up to 25 ppm. So this is how the concentration of the DDT which has been deposited in the initially in the water bodies, while it is reaching to the level of birds, the concentration has been raised, right? So let's understand, this is all about biomagnification. Let's now understand about eutrophication. Now, eutrophication, just now we mentioned eutrophic water bodies means enriched with nutrients. Enriched with nutrients. Let's understand. So, here what happens means, the eutrophication is actually a natural process, natural aging of the lakes. Let's understand what is this natural lake aging process. Natural aging of the lake by nutrient enrichment. Nutrient enrichment. Where we are getting this enriched nutrients. See, when it is young, for example, consider this is a lake. So initially, this lake will be very clear, and the population, whether it is zooplanktons or phytoplanktons or small aquatic animals, will be very, very less initially. And at that time, it will be very clear. In an young lake, consider this is a young lake, just now formed lake. Young lake, the water is cold and clear, supporting little life. So the population of the aquatic organisms which are present in this water bodies are very, very less initially, supporting very little life. Less population size of the aquatic organisms. Now what happens? With time, as the time goes on, as the time passes, what happens? Streams draining into the lake. Some, some streams which are going to come and join with these lakes. Here what happens? Introduces nutrients. Along with the streams that has been added, drained into this lakes, we do find the addition of the nutrients. Nutrients are being added upon to the lake. Now, this enrichment of nutrients, that is eutrophication, enrichment of the nutrients, such as nitrogen, phosphorus, will encourages the growth of aquatic organisms. As there is a more nutrients, using this available nutrients, there is an increase in the growth of the aquatic organisms. Initially, it supports very little life. Now, as the nutrients has been enriched, there is an increase in the number of the aquatic organisms also. Now, that means here, literally, the lake's fertility is increasing because it is being increased in the nutrients. So, as the lake fertility increases, plants and animal life begins to start, raises increasingly, right? Raises quickly. So here what happens? And the organic remains begins to deposit in the lake bottom. So if you consider, so the initiation, burgeon of the both plants as well as animals increases. Little life has now slowly converting into increasing population size of the aquatic organisms. As this is happening, organic remains of the aquatic organism starts to deposit towards the bottom of the lake. So deposition takes place towards the bottom of the lake. All the organic dead and decaying matter, decomposition used of debris, leaves, like phytoplanktons and even the zooplanktons will added up to the dead and decaying matter. All this will pile up towards the end of the lake, which makes the lake shallower. Previously, this is the depth of the lake initially, right? Now, as the deposition takes place, now the depth has been decreased. That means it leads to the shallowing of the lake. Let's understand. Over the centuries, silt means fine sand. Silt and organic debris piles up, accumulates. The lake grows shallower. That means the depth of the lake started to decrease. Now, initially, that is up to here. Now, the depth has been decreased. That means the lake is becoming shallower and warms up. Initially, it is cooler. It is very cool and clear. Now, it is densed up and even the depth is decreased. The debris, organic debris, sand, fine sand, organic matter of the plant system as well as animal system starts to deposit towards the bottom of the lake, which makes the lake shallower as well as warmer. Now, as the lake is getting warmer, it now supports the warm water organism. Previously, it has been occupied with the cold water organisms. With warm water organism, supplanting, replacing those that thrives within a cold environment. Initially, it supports the cold environment, therefore the cold water organism is occupying the lake. As the lake has been enriched with the nutrients, there is a growth of the new aquatic creatures, no matter whether it is a plants or the animal systems, then it slowly starts to decrease the depth of the lake and the shallowing of the lake begins, which leads to the accumulation. And finally, that leads to the warming up of the water. Therefore, it now replaces its creature. Previously, it has been occupied by the cold water organism. Now, it has been replaced with the warm water organisms. Right? Understood? Now, marsh plants takes roots in the shallows. Water has been shallowed and it starts rooting. Marsh plants started to grow and begin to fill the virginal lake basin, slowly converting these water bodies into lands. While we are discussing about the plant succession, we mentioned a point like whether it starts from the xeric conditions or the hydric conditions, it starts its journey towards the mesic condition, that is the land condition. That means here is the best example where the water is slowly becoming to a land. That means mesic conditions gradually converting into, hydric conditions gradually becomes a mesic land. Now, eventually, the lake gives away to large masses, initially small masses, now large masses of floating plants, bug, that is finally converting into land. Hydric to mesic, right? So, this is how eutrophication takes place. So, we have discussed about biomagnification and eutrophication. Now, so here, depending on climate, so here what actually happening? Aging of the lake takes place such that the lakes are slowly going to convert into land. This happens naturally also. That is what we call it as a natural aging of the lake. But due to man activity, human activity, there is a raising up. This eutrophication is happening at a very high speeds. Why? Because by the discharge of the like sewage, which is rich in the organic matter, which is rich in the nutrients, this nutrients supports the raising, the growth of the aquatic organisms very quickly. Let's understand. Depending upon the climate, size of the lake, and other factors, the natural aging of lake may span thousands of years. It will take a very long time, thousands of years. Eutrophication is natural process, but it takes thousands of years. But, however, pollutants from man, human activities like effluents from the industry and home can radially, fundamentally, very altogether it is going to change, accelerate the aging process. Aging process is natural. When it is natural, if it is taking a span of thousands of years, but we reduce the span of being eutrophied. This eutrophication is happening within a very less time comparatively when it is happening naturally. So here, this phenomenon has been called, this increased, accelerated eutrophication, we call it as a cultural or accelerated eutrophication. Accelerated eutrophication. Now, during the past centuries, lakes in many parts of the earth has been severely eutrophied, enriched with the nutrients by the sewage. See, we know that sewage consists of organic matter, right? Organic matter which supports, that is the nutrients and the minerals which supports the growth of the plants and the animals that are present in the water bodies, that is aquatic plants and animals. As this eutrophication is happening, that is enrichment of the water bodies is happening, it is going to lead to the cultural and accelerated eutrophication. Sewage and agricultural as well as industrial waste. Here what happened? The prime contaminant, what we call it as the nitrates and phosphates, which are going to act as a plant nutrients. It is going to accelerate the growth of the plants, the water bodies. So thereby, which leads to here overstimulation. Overstimulation. They overstimulate the growth of the algae. If algae is, we already know if the algae is growing, it will definitely compete for the available dissolved oxygen which is present in the water bodies with the other aquatic organisms, causing unsightly scum, that means ugly to see, unpleasant view, as well as unpleasant odors because of the excessive growth of the algae in the water bodies, and robbing, it is stealing dissolved oxygen, dropping off the water of dissolved oxygen, which is vital to the other aquatic life, right? As nutrients, all of a sudden, it is provided to the water bodies. The algae starts to grow at a very extremely extensive growth. And this extensive growth of the algae will take up all the available dissolved oxygen that is present in the water bodies, which leads to the death of the other aquatic life, right? So at the same time, other pollutants flowing in a lake may poison whole population of fishes whose decomposition remains further deplete the water dissolved oxygen content. As we already know, this dead and decaying matter. See, for example, the sewage has been added where the dissolved oxygen content has been used up, and as the dissolved oxygen content is very reduced, it is going to show its effect on the organic, it is going to show its effect on the aquatic life. That means the hydrophytes as well as the zooplanktons, that is the aquatic plants as well as aquatic animals are going to be killed. This dead and decaying matter will be decomposed by the microorganisms. For that decomposition, it again requires oxygen. That means it is going to further reduce the dissolved oxygen content which is present in the lake. In such a fashion, the lake is suffocating because whatever the dissolved oxygen is being utilized by the microorganisms is being utilized such that the dissolved oxygen is reduced, can the lake can literally choke to death, means suffocation. This unavailability of the oxygen makes the other population of the fishes to die. Now, this is another reason. See, the sewage is not always coming from the cold source. Sometimes heated. The sewage which is coming from the thermal plants, heated thermal waste waters flowing out of the electricity generating units. For example, thermal power plants. From here, we'll get a very heated up, that is thermal waste water, which increases the temperature of the water bodies. Look at here. Constitute another important category of the pollutant. Here what happens? The thermal waste water, what it happens, it eliminates or completely reduces the number of organisms sensitive to high temperatures. So look at here, this is a water body. To this, thermal waste water has been discharged. What we are telling, thermal, that means heated up. Hot waters are coming, hot waste waters are coming. These hot waters will raise up the temperatures of these water bodies, right? Then, which leads to the death of the sensitive animals, which are those animals which are sensitive to the higher temperatures are going to kill, and may also enhances the growth of the plants and fishes in extremely cold areas. See, the area is cold, and this heated wastewater makes the temperature of that water bodies to raise. Then it will support the growth of the plants and animals in the colder regions also. But when it happens when after only it causes the damage to the indigenous flora and fauna. Flora and fauna, plants and animals. Flora is plants, fauna is animal. Fauna means animals. So here, as we already said that, first the water bodies, as it is cool, it supports the cool water, that is cold water organisms. Now, this cold water organisms, by the addition of this thermal waste water, which leads to the raise in the temperature, it is going to replace with the warm water organisms. The replacement of the warm water organisms takes place, but before that, it kills, it will not support the heat sensitive organisms. It will happen, what will happen? The raise of the warm water organisms will happen. But before that, there is a decline in the cold water organism. That is what? It causes a damage to the that means indigenous, native. Initially, it has been occupied with the cold water organisms. No, first the cold water organism has to be damaged. Then only the rise of the temperature will support the growth of the warm water organisms. So this is how, yeah. Uh, Water pollution, we have discussed about the water pollution and how the discharge of the treated sewage is going to helpful, and in what way the discharge of the untreated sewage is going to add up to the eutrophication, and also we also understood about the biomagnification. So that is it. In the next coming up class, let's discuss about the solid bases, right? Till then, keep learning with weed learning. Thank you.